All right, looks like we've got the attendees coming in now, which is great. Welcome. We'll be kicking off in just a minute. Thank you for joining promptly. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar here with Girls in Tech. We'll just give it another half a minute or so just for people to come on in. Good morning to you, Kim. Hello, Monica. It's good to see we're going to have an interactive session. I'm looking forward to this. Hey, Danielle. And I believe, Adriana, have you joined us now? Lovely. Would you like to kick things off, Adriana? Okay, everybody, it looks like we're ready to go. And yeah, we've got a good number of attendees here. So thank you for making the time to hear about working remote and how to succeed with virtual teams. Partway through the webinar, I'm actually going to ask you to look for the poll, which is going to ask you a couple of questions. It's multi-choice, it'll be easy to answer. And then we'll work through, I guess, the tailoring of some of the key aspects that get fed back just from our audience. So I'm pretty keen to make sure that it's interactive. And can everyone hear me? Looks like we're set. So we'll kick things off. My name is Ben Bigford. I work with a company called X Team, and I focus on growth and partnerships. And it's a pleasure to partner up with Girls in Tech today to share insights about working remote, particularly in this time when it's not something necessarily that we do every day. Working remote, we're probably more used to working in offices, but in reality, when you think about it, even organizations that are larger offering the chance to work from different locations, whether it be co-working, and of course mobile technologies and wireless technologies have allowed us for quite some time now to work and access information when we're on the go and on the road and on the move. So we'll move on in and I'll just cover off the agenda here. But again, just want to say thank you very kindly to Girls in Tech, to Adriana Gascoigne and the team. And X Team are very excited about being able to provide and collaborate in this regard. So look forward to more collaborations like this in the future. I'll start off by just some introductions and give you a little bit of understanding. Not everyone on the webinar today is likely to know of X Team. We are based in the Southern Hemisphere originally, but now all around the world. And we'll go on to looking at some of those key aspects of the challenges and opportunities, and welcoming questions coming back from the webinar chat session there too. So for everyone that's listening in and watching, please open up the chat window on the side, and that way if you've got any questions, I'll come back to those towards the end. I'm actually planning to leave about 20 minutes or so for questions and an interactive discussion there. And great, and I can see, yep, got my email address there, that's correct. And then we'll after going through the working remote part, which is going to be relevant to people that are on their own, and just from the perspective of how you set yourself up, how you stay energized and motivated, and how you make the best of that opportunity wherever you are. We'll then move to, I guess, that perspective of how you might play a greater role in terms of teams and virtual teams, whether you're actually a team leader or a participant in a team, so that you can actually work effectively with others. And there's some key aspects around culture, as well as being able to empower yourself and others in a team. And then we'll talk a little bit about the tools, but I'm expecting questions for that towards the end as well. So we'll probably talk a bit more about that in the question time. So that's the agenda, and we'll keep on moving on from there. So without further ado, I'll introduce myself. We've got a little bit of time to share a bit of understanding about the company. So my name again is Ben Bigford. I focus on growth and partnerships. I'm actually based in Melbourne, Australia, which is the original location where X-Team was founded 14 years ago now. And as you can see in the picture there, I'm actually in Egypt. That was earlier this year. I do love to travel, and so working for an organization that's actually remote first was something that was very appealing to me. And we'll cover that perspective, but certainly the part that's relevant to people, whether they're solopreneurs, whether they're working with a small team, perhaps building a startup, or working in an enterprise organization. And we'll talk through some of those issues today. From our website, I've just taken a snapshot here because I wanted to use this as a means to just showcase what we do. In very simple terms, X-Team actually provides high-performing on-demand teams of developers for leading brands. And we do that today. Certainly the brands that we've amassed today, including Fox, Riot Games, Coinbase, which is actually a cryptocurrency wallet and trading capability, Threadless, which is a design portal for short-run design items like t-shirts and the like. And then from the early days, in fact, we were one of the three involved in Twitter from the outset. So involved in building and scaling brands as large as Twitter, and helping them on that growth path since 2006 when we were founded. And since then, we've certainly branched out into many different areas, but we've continued to remain 100% remote. And with that, we add a lot of value to our clients and help them to keep moving forward by adding either, building their teams from scratch or augmenting the teams that they might already have. So we're what you would describe as, I guess, a talent as a service company. Organizations, when they want to source talent quickly, we've already got these, an amazing group of talent on our books. And we continue to get roughly about 10,000 CVs a month. So the quality of the talent is something that we've got an amazing selection of, and it's more about a selection process, in fact, making sure that we get and provide our clients and the companies we work with, not just here in Australia, but particularly in US, Europe, and South America. I've got clients even in Africa as well. So with more than 40 countries where we source our developers from, gives us a really fantastic footprint across all of the different time zones and cultures. And in some cases, the language becomes quite important as well, to be able to match the high quality, highly talented developers to the culture, the language, and the specific requirements in the locations where our clients are operating as well, or where their clients are, where they want to be able to develop the applications to suit those client needs. So yes, being in Melbourne, I'm certainly quite remote probably to a lot of the people in the audience here. And what I thought I'd do, just in giving you that little overview, is to just kick off a video. This is actually a gentleman who you might know of. His name's Jason Silver, and he's a presenter on the Discovery Channel. He was also involved with the National Geographic Channel. And he just describes, I guess, a little bit of perspective in a very succinct way where we're at in this whole remote workspace, and also just briefly introduces X-Team and how we fit into that picture as well. So I'll kick that off now.
Human beings are wired for adventure. We get off, we get activated by novelty, by the thrill of something new. So really, if you want to activate the human spirit, go on an adventure, take the journey, heed the call, so to speak. And the question then becomes, how do we reconcile our desire for adventure to turn our lives into a dynamic, active work project while simultaneously being responsible, while simultaneously paying the bills, while simultaneously feeling like we're making a contribution and we're being productive? Most people will tell us, go to work, go to work, go to work, save money, and then go on a great adventure. But what if there's a solution beyond that? What if wireless technologies, such as what we're seeing increasingly today, can allow us to become tethered while being disconnected, to be close while being afar, to be everywhere at once? And so I recently heard about a company called X Team, and these guys, let me say it, they really do embody these values. They might as well be the poster children for the rise of digital nomadic tribes, right? People, entrepreneurs, free spirits around the world that are gallivanting, that are exploring, that are truly living the adventure, right? Yet at the same time, they're a community of software developers who are super productive, who are creating amazing software solutions, solving problems, solving with companies, while living a life in which they realize more than ever, access is more important than ownership. So my friends at X Team, I celebrate you for what you embody. I celebrate you for being brilliant, innovative, counterintuitive software developers stationed around the world and doing your thing and really living up to the ideals of life as a great adventure. 21st century poster children for what's possible for human beings. Free yourself from the constraints, from the traditional, from the tetherings of what used to be, and let go. Take the journey, heed the call. Much love, guys. Cheers.
So let me just jump back, make sure I've got you all there. So yeah, that was Jason Silva, and as he said, access is important, and that's really what's changed for us. What's made the remote working capability available to us, and really wireless technology, mobile technology, and what we'll talk about also. He alludes to there in a very visual way, which is the culture, the sort of culture that you, whether you're working for yourself, whether you're working for, I guess, a collaboration of entrepreneurs and building something, or working for an enterprise and just happen to be working remote some part of the time or all of the time. The culture that you want to create is really an important part of the discussion today as well. So I'll just round this out a little bit further. So X Team, I mentioned, just in terms of size and scale, we've got what's approaching about 500 developers now working remotely in about 40 countries. And what's important about that is just thinking about your own sort of remote challenges and opportunities, which we'll come to, which is the footprint. The world's becoming much more global, and the requirements for being able to meet that is getting more challenging because of the fact that people can reach us. They can reach us all hours of the day and night with mobile technology, but also in terms of being able to deal with that, there's more channels of communication. And for us, I guess that organic growth has got us to the size after 14 years where word of mouth and the quality of work has allowed us to grow to that scale. And with that, we've been able to now, you know, with a large pool of talent, be able to align the right developers to our customers' needs, not only to match an existing team if they've got it, their existing culture, but also specifically the skills that they might need for a project. And all these things become really important when you think about working remote, because you need to then better understand each individual's contribution, the skill sets, the culture, the strengths, and we'll talk through a little bit more of that as we go through this. Today, we certainly serve some big brands. I mentioned earlier, several of these, and from Twitter's a good example in the sense that we've actually been involved in brands also from the early days. And the relevance here is for the audience here from Girls in Tech, just interested to help no matter whether you're on your own and dealing with remote work for the first time, and it's probably a good point at which we might actually just open up the polls and ask you where you're at in your journey in terms of working remote. So I'll launch the first poll, which is a question: what is your level of experience with working remote? And I'll leave that open for about 20 more seconds just to give you a chance. If you, yeah, that's it. Some of the responses are coming in now. So I'll give you the response and the sum up of that. So I've only given you 3 options just to keep it simple. And that way we can get a bit of an understanding about the audience as well, what you're currently dealing with in terms of working remote. And okay, that should be enough. So essentially 30% of the people on the webinar actually have no experience working remote. So it gives me an idea, just to make sure I'll cover things off in a bit more detail. And 54% have chosen the middle option, learning to develop skills and motivation and other aspects of working remote. And then 15% are actually feel that they're 100% productive, actually up to 19% now. So I'll end that poll. Just gives us a bit of a picture that the majority of you are just looking to learn to develop the skills, motivation, and some of the capability around working remote. I'll launch the second poll now too, which leads into the second part of our discussion. And that is now available to you, which is, I'll read the question. Do you work with other people remotely as virtual teams, collaborating to get your work done? And how often, essentially? So it'll be good to get an understanding. So given that most of you are just looking to enhance your skills working remote, and about 30% are new to working remote, and now we'll get a bit more of an understanding about how you actually collaborate in teams as well. So most people are working in teams already, either often around the 70% mark, and sometimes 23%, rarely 13%, and not around the 8% mark. So I think that's enough too. We'll end the poll, but it gives me a bit of a picture that yeah, people are working in teams as well in that virtual experience as well. So thank you for the feedback there. So what we'll talk about now is, I guess, the challenges and the opportunities. So I have just thrown up a couple of photos there because in my experience, different places actually also provide challenges of their own. So bandwidth is a pretty important thing, and you can do research ahead of time, particularly if you are wanting to go to a particular, work out of a particular location like a cafe and so on. There is apps now that can give you an idea about where the nearest Wi-Fi locations are, where you might want to work out of ahead of time. So it gives you the chance to not just consider the co-working spaces or but also to help locate the right cafes that could help you out. And at the same time, Wi-Fi then becomes really important too, because they might have good bandwidth, but the availability hours that you want to work, and you definitely need to take that sort of thing into account. In terms of other challenges, and I've listed a couple here probably just to talk about and to handle questions on later on as well, is that a lot of people are probably having challenges, particularly now given we've got, you know, the COVID-19 scenario where people are being forced to stay in their home and not obviously having the access to cafes and co-working spaces. So one of the challenges there is with other people perhaps at home with you, whether it's other family members, kids, perhaps home from school, and even juggling work with homeschooling. It's probably quite a difficult situation in terms of focus. And so just picking off one of those points there, being able to focus is pretty important. There's a technique known as Pomodoro, which you can actually download software on your mobile to do this. And what you can do is focus on a particular task for 20 minutes at a time. And you can use the app to provide a timer, and it can count down. And I've used that in the past as well as one of the means for helping provide focus at home when I need to focus on a particularly important task that's urgent and I need to get it done. But the other aspect then is if you do have others at home that aren't normally at home with you, and it's a different situation than you're used to, and perhaps challenging your ability to focus, it definitely, and if it's distracting you from getting work done, obviously it's important to find your own space, find a place, and probably be consistent as well in the way in which you work in that same location. But being able to close the door or create some separation, even if it is a screen, if you happen to have an open working area at home, to be able to visually separate yourself from others. And one of the things that I know with X Team and a lot of our developers, they do use their own headphones. So that's another very useful tool and technology to whether it's to actually listen to the music that you want to listen to that you find helps you concentrate, or to actually just block out the noise and other distractions around you. Now, if you do happen to have family at home and it can be a bit distracting, one of the techniques that I'm aware of across our teams that they'd shared just recently was to sort of have a whiteboard in a very visible location, and whether it's your husband, your partner, and the kids, they can actually see and schedule elements and see when you've, in fact, might have meetings during the day or have some free time that you would be available, so that they can then keep themselves busy in the meantime and try to stay out of your way, knowing that you'll be working during certain hours, and being able to share that schedule in a visual way in a fairly visible location will help coordinate that as well. Lack of balance is definitely one of the challenges that we hear of as well, and particularly when you're dealing with other multiple locations across different time zones. So with the lack of balance, one of the things that our teams tend to do is just make sure that they're getting exercise, that they're scheduling that in, and that way, particularly when they're working from home, you may be aware of this already, that it's very easy to work longer hours even than you normally would in the office. So for that, it's very important to schedule in time for yourself. So including, your meals, whether it's your breakfast, lunch, and finishing up at a certain time to make sure, you're catering for your own health, but also exercise, which is really important for, keeping the mind focused and staying on track. So if we look to the other side, and we'll just talk a little bit about opportunities, particularly in this scenario where people are now at home and it's sort of come as a bit of a surprise, or people new to being remote, then the urge is to sort of try and recreate the scene and the same experience that you have in the office. But the reality is that's not easy to do. And, even looking at this particular building here, you might recognize that it's actually the new Apple headquarters in California. Now, very significant sum in the billions has been invested in creating this beautiful office space, amazing eating and dining areas. You can see the beautiful open areas and green spaces in the middle of it all. Now, it just so happens at this point in time, it's obviously not being used or readily available to all of the Apple staff as well. So it just makes you realize that the ability to be adaptable is really important. And at the same time as well, trying to replicate what you might have in a scenario at work in a home office is generally not very easy to do. So it comes back to thinking about the necessities, the things that make it comfortable for you. And certainly ergonomics is an important one. Making sure that, you've got also an environment that is appealing and fresh air, you've got access to water, and natural light even can make a very big difference, particularly if you're working during the day, to try and have as much natural light and even fresh air coming in as possible. But the goal is not to recreate the office at home. It really isn't. The idea is to take advantage of, the advantages that you do have when you've got flexibility and being able to schedule time for the meetings, but also to create space for yourself. It's part of not only, being able to be productive, but potentially even more productive than you are in an office, because that way you can, step back from the computer a little bit more easily and perhaps not be interrupted, or conversations being kicked off as you're walking down the hall, and between meetings. So in that sense, you have the same opportunity, if not better, to actually be very productive with the work that you wanted to get done and the tasks that you need to get done, but also in carving out time and space for yourself. So it is a matter of planning, and certainly being able to plan for the equipment, the space, and the way in which you'll best be energized and motivated. So again, I'll kick off another video for you here. Just a little snippet.
Forward. This is the remote life. This isn't an easy life. This is a constant effort to capture that energy and make a greater impact. But this is what you signed up for, because you live to make an impact in your work and in your life, not to trap your mind and your heart and your passions away in a cage. You are meant to put a dent in the universe, to harness the energy that freedom gives you to unleash your potential, to seek the things that remind you you're alive each and every day. We carry one of the greatest freedoms of our time, the opportunity to live and work from anywhere. Capitalize on the freedom you have, on the time you have, and make an impact. Don't make excuses. Capitalize and unleash.
Great. I just wanted to, show you the video, partly because one of the biggest challenges, personally in my experience I've had at times is staying motivated. And when you're remote, it does get a little bit challenging. So when you consider the opportunities here that you do have more freedom, you've got the chance to plan that time and space for the things that you want to do, that energizes you, the things that you enjoy doing. You've got more chance to do that balancing act between those things, the exercise, whether it's take care of some of the chores at home, as well as get your work done. And with that, it's really a matter of self-leadership as well, and developing those skills around focusing on things that do enrich yourself. And at the same time, one of the questions that came in from Robert here, which was about experience. What sort of experiences do you want to add to the working day and this opportunity working remote? Because thinking about that too, with the greater flexibility and the greater freedom, you can actually meld that in. And it's one of the things I certainly like to do. I know that working remote, I tend to get a lot more bike riding in now, and I also like to explore different cafes. So I tend not to work at the same place all the time. In fact, if I find that I'm getting a little bit stale or not as motivated in my work, one of the things I like to do is to go find a new location to work out of. And I find that that's sort of a new way of re-energizing and invigorating. And so for that, I highly recommend. Now, back to Robert's question about experience as well. He actually quotes Samuel Clemens, who said that experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. So with that, I'll lead that back to, I guess, the importance of having a purpose, having plan, and something that does keep you moving forward. So when you're in an office, you've got a culture and people around you that often, keeps you in the groove of getting things done, following through on tasks. And of course, you're in an environment where you're more likely to be talking about work more of the time. So I'll go into some of the things that we do to help unleash, if you like, and align back to people's personal drivers, their personal motivations, and what they like to do in terms of being active, whether physically, mentally, or stimulating, if you like, a culture of learning as well. And that's really important to tie back into that element of empowerment, that sense that we can have a choice about what it is we want to learn and grow, and what skills we might want to continue to develop while we're working and while we've got this flexibility, but also to still balance that out with being able to deliver, quality work, and to do that in a way that is recognized and appreciated by the team that we work for, the company that we're working with, and the clients that we're delivering delivering potentially products and services to. So I've covered that off probably to the point where I just wanted to say, understanding your team's shared values and interests is really interesting. And even at an individual level, I find that it becomes a lot clearer and you actually understand a lot more about that working remote. And if not, if you're new to the remote experience, then that's definitely something you want to contemplate. I'll link back now to the X-Team culture, because for us, part of the motivation and part of what energizes and motivates our community globally is allowing people to be able to self-organize into the groups of like-minded people. So for that, typically it's around sport and activities and travel. And of course, at the moment, some of those things are on hold. But at the same time, we've also got the ability to do things online and communicate, not just through a Zoom channel, but asynchronous communications. And and with that, the asynchronous communications include gaming. So something that we do on a almost weekly basis, we have games so that when people finish from the intensity of, in our case, obviously around software development, that they can switch off and just unwind and play games. And some of these games, in fact, are based around games that people are interested in. And sometimes they're actually organized by X-Team to allow like competing groups. And so what we'll do is we'll group up the organization, and they'll choose which sort of clubs or groups that they'll assign to. And then we'll use that as a means to sort of gamify, if you like, the entertainment, the engagement, and what leads to the motivation and energy. So there's no doubt psychologically and from a, I guess, historical point of view, you'd know yourself, you feel energy when you're doing what you love. So the idea of having that flexibility, as well as the opportunity to choose and schedule and organize yourself when you're working remote, is to choose to do more of what you love, because that's going to allow you to be more productive, and happiness and enjoyment is a key part of that. So you'll realize very quickly that when you do that, when you're balancing out not only the work that you do want to get done and choose to get done, but doing that with a balance of more things that are things that you're enjoying and like to do and that have interests in, that's going to add to your energy and your motivation to get work done. So highly recommend exploring that if you're new, and even if you're looking to even enhance your productivity from home, suggest that you explore things like that, like even making and taking time out and breaks to listen to music, if not while you're working, but to add the ability to switch in and out of those things that are almost like mini rewards. And for some people, that's about communicating with family and friends as well. So if you think about it, the flexibility to pick up the phone, take some time out, connect with some friends, connect with loved ones, and to check in with them as well. When you've got flexibility, it can be the thing that just re-energizes you throughout the day. Whereas working in an office environment, you may not feel as comfortable to do that, knowing that people are working away and listening in. And in fact, I certainly have that experience in working in office environments in the past. So again, it's an advantage working remote. Take advantage of it. So here, there's a couple of other points there around environment. So changing the environment, I mentioned an example earlier where I like to find new cafes or new locations to work out of. Sometimes it is outdoors in a park. Not as easy to do, but sometimes you can find a bench or the outdoor tables as well to be able to work off, depending on what you're doing, of course. But the environment can have a big effect on your energy and your motivation. Socializing is definitely a key part of being human here, just being able to meet people, and whether that's meeting new people in a local cafe or out of a co-working space, in fact. So being able to check in and visit or take advantage of visiting people that you might know that work out of a co-working space, and getting the experience of that on a part-time basis, if you like, not necessarily full-time. I'll just look to the questions now, see if there's a bit of feedback here. What are some of the recommendations I have for effective remote working? Well, I guess I'm adding examples here, but I would add that one of the things that X Team are pretty conscious of is, and I'll get to this in terms of virtual teams, is that we're less focused around the time. It's a lot more focused around value. So effective remote working is really about being able to deliver value and effectively using your time. Obviously, if you want to be able to have a balance between your personal life and your work life, then it does require a little bit of planning and scheduling. But you'll find also that if you get into routine, like starting at a particular time each day, even making sure you go to a particular space in the house, even getting dressed up, making sure you've had breakfast, you've had a meal or exercise beforehand, it gets you into the right frame of mind and allows you to be more productive and more effective as well. One of the other questions is, can I talk a little bit about self-care during remote working? Any tips and tricks? I would say, yeah, self-care is very, very important. And I'd say, even mental health at a time like this is, even probably more challenged than normal. So I would say that it's more important than ever to do just little things that actually are rewards and things that you enjoy doing. And it could be as simple as playing a song or some music that you like. Or picking up a book that you're enjoying. I'd suggest though that having news running in the background or news reports and hearing that constantly would not necessarily be motivating for you. So I'd be suggesting that if you have the chance to listen to the music you want to without necessarily the ads and all of the latest updates of how many people are infected today is not necessarily going to help you be all that productive. But the other part would be to explore some of the apps that can help you schedule time. So if you're able to then specify not only the tasks and manage the tasks that you're wanting to do, so tools like Jira, which is an Atlassian tool, or Podio, project management tools that allow you, whether you're on the mobile or the laptop, to be able to keep track of the tasks that you're planning to do, as well as scheduling them, as well as ticking them off, so that you get the satisfaction of working through those things and feeling the productivity and the effectiveness of moving through the things you need to do. And everyone does have their own working style. So certainly suggest that you need to explore that and find the things that work for you, whether it is, for some people, it still is working with paper, not necessarily working on a mobile app. For others, it's collaborative. So in that way, if you're sharing a to-do list and keeping each other accountable, that can sometimes be more motivating for some as well. So I wanted to jump to the next element of the discussion, which is around virtual teams. So again, looking at the discussion, the poll there, 60% said, yeah, that in terms of collaborating as virtual teams, 60% roughly is collaborating in that way, and quite often, about 26% sometimes, and 7% no. So trust is a really key one here. So one of the things that X Team realized from early days is that rather than having software or time clocking of apps and basically monitoring developers, we chose to go totally the opposite way, which was trust. And again, this may or may not suit you if you happen to be a team leader or a part of a team, but we find that trusting your team to be able to manage their time and then work in the time when their energy is best suited to getting things done is actually a far better and more productive way of working. So again, a good tip for exploring and another aspect of it. Diversity, if you've got the chance to be paired up with different teams and to be able to explore different ideas. Sometimes in the office, you're not actually exploring the opportunity to be as diverse. You'll tend to work with the same people, but working remote actually opens up the chance to greater diversity, and you'll find that it's going to be even more productive in terms of new ideas, new ways of seeing things, new perspectives, and certainly from problem solving. We reach back into the X team globally through Slack, in fact, another tool that can highly recommend for being able to collaborate in a way that's asynchronous, which means not real time. You can send a message, and when people are ready, they can pick it up and respond. So Slack is one of the tools that we use for being able to, put challenges and problems, or even questions about, the latest features of a particular technology stack, using that diversity and depth of skill and breadth of skill across our skill sets all around the world in the X team community allows us to tap into that depth and breadth of skill and the diversity of skill to be able to solve problems much more quickly, and therefore to be able to serve our client base. So don't be afraid to reach out to forums online, and whether it's within the company that you're already working with, or even beyond that, which again, you tend to just focus on the people and the teams that you work with when you're in an office environment. When you're remote, you want to think a little bit more creatively, a little bit broader, and reach out to a broader audience, certainly, security permitting. You want to be able to also get into the habit of a learning culture. So part of the day is to look at, trying to develop your skills. This is a fantastic opportunity, this freedom to add, learning to the scheduling. And given the flexibility that you've got, you don't have to do that in the house necessarily. So that time, even under current conditions with lockdown, you're still entitled to go get some exercise. And that might include a podcast, for instance. So to look into a podcast that might provide some guidance on, an area of interest that you might want to develop a new skill, or perhaps enhance and broaden the skills that you've already got in a particular area. I'll share another thing in terms of virtual teams that we do with Slack, and this has been an incredible learning curve for us. So being a software company, and I'd suggest that this is something that goes well beyond just software companies, but for our developers, they develop what's called Agile, and Agile means that they're continually iterating not only the design aspects of the software, but then the coding and the development of it. And then they come back to the design again to see if it needs to be changed or altered or improved. And with that, it's actually a very flexible, but also what provides a much better way of adapting and being able to change direction or improve, if you like, the outcomes once hurdles are hit. Or and one of the aspects of that methodology is that at some point in a day, and it might be every couple of days, to do what's called a stand-up. So as a virtual team, it's a very powerful mechanism to actually have your team on a video conference call, say using a tool like Zoom. It could be Microsoft Teams, it could be Google Hangout, or one of the webinar or video type tools, and to be able to see each other and to spend no more than 15 or 20 minutes max. And with that, obviously you want to curb the team numbers so that you don't go over that time, because it's really important. It's very focused, but just covering off what you had been working on the day before, what you're planning to work on, and then covering off things like blocks or hurdles, and then opening that up to the team. And that way, very quickly finding out through that diversity of perspectives and through the stand-up, to be able to identify who might have some experience or have a perspective on being able to help you out to resolve a problem. And then outside that stand-up 15-20 minute session, to be able to schedule some time to be able to work through with the appropriate people that might help you. So again, as a virtual team culture, starting off with a consistent pattern of starting a day or even finishing a day or both, where the team themselves come together, and then the rest of the day is spent in the deep work getting things done. And that, in certainly the software development space, allows for mixing up both the focused and structured collaborative part of a day, as well as the deep work where you need time, your own space when you're working remote to get things done. And that allows you to also be very productive. So when you hit the walls or hit challenges, you can share that with the team can get involved, they can quickly identify whether they can help you or not, or guide you to somewhere that might be of help in the next step, whether it's your manager, the team lead, or members of your team. And at the same time, it's a great forum as well for being able to provide recognition. So for instance, at the end of a week or at the end of a fortnight in software development, there's typically showcases, and that's the chance to not only recognize the progress that people are making moving forward in terms of that software, but also recognizing the lessons, the challenges, and things that could be learnt and done better in the next iteration or the next sort of stage of project work. So again, one of the learnings that just sharing back. So I'm just looking to see if there's any other questions here. Do I see this crisis changing the way all teams and organizations operate going forward? I'd have to say yes. I think just having been a remote worker and someone that's done that for many years, I've been surprised that it's taken this long. But of course, the COVID-19 crisis is now the biggest global experiment in remote working. So it's certainly accelerated this, and I guess, challenged people, if they weren't already partially working remote, to at least now take the steps they need to still be productive remotely. But I think these skills, this mindset, and particularly the mindset, is a key thing that's changed and shifted. And with that, it does require not just a different mindset, but also different policies and procedures. And one of the things that I've mentioned there on the page, just up on the screen, is feedback loops. So it's all the more important, particularly when you've got teams remote, that you're actually keeping in touch and finding out how things are going. So for team leads, it's really important that they schedule time, one-on-one time. It's important, for instance, in our experience at X Team, that we provide recognition, whether it's via Slack or in our group forums, and we do quarterly town halls. We have, as I mentioned, sessions at end of week, and also fortnightly where there's gaming and more social type interactions. And then on a quarterly basis, we have what's called seasons. And we actually plan, if you like, a video release. People will watch it in their own time, but it basically sets up a theme for the quarters, and it helps us sort of all be in alignment for, if you like, productivity or learning development or whatever it might be, initiatives that we're all sort of unified behind on a quarterly basis. And that does help us, if you like, move forward, continue to be energized, but also continues to feed and grow the virtual team culture, so that we have bonds beyond the work. And it's not just always about work when we're working with our teammates virtually and remote, that we're actually making time for informal and personal discussions, as well as that to be supplementing more formal business discussions and the formal business meetings that we do virtually. One of the questions just came in: how do we facilitate highly complex or emotionally charged conversations when people aren't face to face? And that's a good question. Thanks for that one. We'd suggest that, and in our experience, that feedback that's positive is definitely something to do in a more public forum. So whether it's at a stand-up, that 15 or 20-minute session that might kick off a day, or in an afternoon, where it is everyone on at the same time, or at least a team coming together to sort of share where they're at, what they've been working on, and whether they've got any blocks. That could be a period at which to sort of recognize elements. But for something that's complex or emotional, really the best mechanism, if you can, is to not use messaging, but to get on the phone and to literally relate and deal with things as personally as you can. At a human level, being able to relate emotionally means that when you can hear someone's voice, when you can hear their empathy, and also, I guess, visually as well, because body language is really important. But even to hear a voice is so much more important in an emotionally charged scenario, if there's a need to perhaps deal with a complex situation, that speaking face to face is obviously the best thing that can be done. But if not that, then probably over the phone, and then if not that, via a video conference, and then messaging sort of after all of those, just because of its lack of personal interaction, in the sense of sharing emotions and being able to hear someone's feelings and concerns and empathy, and depending on what the situation is, of course. want to keep just moving. I mentioned about seasons. One of the things that we also do, we gamify, and I'm just going to share a couple of things. This may or may not be appropriate to you, but again, it's important to bring a bit of gaming and fun into things to facilitate the bonds and to facilitate the connections beyond work, so that people do get to know each other. So, and also to continue to build that human connection and build on that. So understanding what people's personal, interests are, sometimes being able to, change the photo, or have particular forums where you ask people to participate in a bit of a group fun challenge. So it's not just gaming, but it might be, for instance, just for any people that have pets or whatever, to share their favorite pet. What we do, in fact, is we have micro challenges. We've got the ability to challenge each other and get into sort of groups of challenging each other around physical activities, exercise programs, but also photography or various interests. So, for instance, I'm part of one of the groups on our Slack channel, one of the channels where we have, on a quarterly basis, we earn, if you like, tokens for just contributing and being interactive and sharing. And in doing that, those micro challenges and those bounties then provide us with rewards. And you'll see here up on the screen, 2 coins or 2 tokens. And we can also, obviously favorite certain bounties for the quarter. And in this case, it starts to become a way in which we challenge ourselves. So back to that, how do we motivate and how do we energize ourselves? Well, in this case, X Team have actually developed a platform called XHQ, or our headquarters, our virtual headquarters for the X Team globally. And this is a way in which we're sort of challenged to take on new tasks and new opportunities and to share back with the community. And that way we're continually keeping connected, and we're able to share what we're interested in with, like-minded people that are part of our global community and local community as well. So in this case, you can see a couple of examples of bounties there. That's very, a really fun way actually to continue to explore the things that motivate you and energize you, but at the same time, learn and connect with other people. And in our case, I mentioned about 500 developers around the world, most of which I've never met face to face. But I still feel connected to many of them because we do these fun things together, and we get to learn about each other through the gaming, through the challenges, and through the ways we interact online. So these things are interesting to keep in mind if you are a team leader or planning to lead remote teams in future, or doing that now, to explore ways in which you can share things that are personal and experiential, as well as motivating and growing you in some way, or sharing your personal passions and interests. Another question up here from Rebecca: are there ways to facilitate workshops or creative ideation phases of projects remotely? Yeah, good question, Rebecca. I'd say absolutely there is. And in fact, making time for that's important. So while you want to structure work meetings perhaps on a regular basis, there might be the need to do a monthly and perhaps quarterly get-togethers as well. And in that, it's really important to balance out not only the work side of it, but also some of the creative side. So it might be on a weekly, fortnightly basis, or it could be ad hoc, but to bring people together into collaborative environments, and in our case, remote as well, but where we actually use whiteboards or these virtual post-it notes. We can project and share ideas. We can work through, if you like, very contextualized, structured discussions, but in a fun way, we're contributing and feeling a part of the process, of the creative process, the design process, and perhaps even coming up with, new aspects of the business, new directions, new strategies. And so I think, workshops and creative ideation is really important parts of, keeping the team engaged, but also making sure that it's not just doing and being involved in getting the tasks done, but it's also switching on the creative aspects of people in the organization, and being able to facilitate that remotely. It's also important to share that capability, so that you're not necessarily just having the same facilitators all the time, but you get to share that amongst the smaller the smaller teams. So if the teams are too big, it might be a matter of just breaking them into smaller teams, and that they'll collaborate and come back and report back, and that different people have, that everyone in the team has the chance to not only have a voice, have their say, but also have shared roles in reporting back, if you like, what the team has found, what they've explored, and what they've discussed in those facilitated workshops. Another question was, do these approaches work just as well if the team is a single remote person versus fully remote? Yes, I think they, in my experience, they do work pretty well, whether you're on your own. It does come back to probably the tools and how well you've planned out the facilitation process. So I've got about another 5 minutes to go. So I'm just going to jump through the last couple of elements here, which basically just broke down a little bit further. So some of those things to keep in mind are around doing more of what you love. So thinking about the things and even writing out a list so that you can jump back to that when you've got a bit of spare time, or you're feeling a bit flat, lacking a bit of energy, and you want to do something that you haven't thought of or done for a while. And that way you can perhaps change your environment, pick a new place to go to work out of, or go visit for a coffee, or, something that is a bit of a reward for yourself, so that you're in control, you're in charge, and you're making the choices that are re-energizing you. And in our case, we do something called Unleash. And Unleash is where we actually, as a company, invest back in our staff and our contractors, so that we're encouraging them to use a budget back to the things that they're interested in doing, whether it's books and learning, could even be in some cases taking their family to an Airbnb and taking them away for the weekend. Or could be going and working out of a co-working space and trying a new one if that was important to them. So that budget is allocated to them that on a fortnightly basis when they do their, invoicing. That's when they can add that up to the amount that's allocated for each month. And that's us as a company continuing to invest in the growth and the motivation, and allowing and empowering our staff to choose things that are taking them in new directions, and giving them the sense of moving forward. So that's, again, something I'd be suggesting to you. Some of the things we facilitate as well are, people sharing their work environment, so that, different people can have different ideas about it, and how that contributes to their motivation. So stimulating and facilitating these conversations, we find, is a great help. So we're getting down to the last couple of minutes. I'll move forward a little bit here. Another thing we do is we actually create these, if you like, logical groupings of teams, and then have them compete. So whether it be physical exercises and things unrelated to work, it can be steps in the day. And this, if you like, starts to motivate and drive the bonding and the connection, the human connection, and allows people all around the world to feel a part of not only the overall team, but the teams within which they associate with for these types of challenges. So it becomes a fun way of engaging, connecting, and also meeting new people across the organization, in our case, global. So it really does facilitate a bonding and that human connection, but in a virtual way. So making it predictable and consistent, that's certainly important. And as I get to the end of this, I just wanted to mention, things like this, having a, playlist, sharing playlists, something as simple as that. On Spotify, we have our own radio for X Team, and we can suggest options and share back. But you could simply do that just through, the free option of Spotify, and have people sharing and being, if you like, the resident DJ, VJ for the day, the week, the month, whatever it might be. So ideas along these lines, we then encourage our, people to, in being active, and we reward them with tokens, and with that they can buy, gifts and special merchandise. So in this case, we call it the Vault, and they can buy T-shirts, they can buy things not only for themselves but their family, and it also includes, things for, like water bottles and notepads, and in this case, I'm wearing an X Team hat, as you can see. So again, it's a reward process, and it's something that we continue to invest in. Maybe not for every company or organization, but again, you could consider it even as an individual or a small team, where you're putting something aside to not only reward the right behaviors, but to work towards something that you want to achieve together. And then conferences, thinking about even your own internal conferences where you might want to share information and knowledge. So that's probably one of the last points I just want to share there. We certainly use a blog quite actively. So that way we've got a a person who does interview and collects stories, and that gets shared up on our blog site, so that there's also that collective knowledge and knowledge base being shared back, and that sense of belonging, which is what it's all about here. So, these things based on channels within Slack, we've created different virtual clubs, if you like, and this is where people with like-minded interests share photographs, they share experiences, share stories. So there's that camaraderie and learning and experiences that are continually shared amongst the working team. And I think this works even better in some ways as a remote working environment than it would as working in an office space. And appreciation is another part of that. So being able to, like, we set aside times, sometimes we have a 24-hour appreciation bomb, as we call them. And it's the chance to thank people, acknowledge people, but at the same time, we do it every time people submit their invoices. So appreciation then becomes part of the culture of X Team. So the last point here is really to think about the sort of culture you'd want to be a part of, the culture you want to create at home, and the culture you want to contribute to the team that you're going to work with virtually. So I want to thank you all very, very much. And thank you for being a part of this. I'm just going to jump to the last point, which is, make your teams feel part of something bigger than themselves. I think that's a key part to feeling connected, feeling the humanity and feeling the teams and the support. And in our case, we do things for charity, the environment. We feel that a low carbon footprint's a really important part of us as a team. So we contribute to that and capitalize on what, working remote actually makes possible. And that's more than you can do in the office. So enjoy the journey, enjoy the learning. I hope today's been valuable in learning more about this, and the possibilities are truly endless. So I hope you've learned a lot. I really have enjoyed this opportunity to speak with you all. And so stay safe, stay strong, and enjoy this experience of working remote. I'm sure you're going to learn to enjoy it and be even more productive than you could have imagined. So thank you all very much. I'll stay on if there's any more questions just for the end of this. Thank you kindly. Thanks for your time, Monica. Thanks, Rebecca. Cheers, Silvio. Thanks, Silvio. Thank you, Emma. And thank you, Lucero Garcia. Cheers, Kim. I'm glad you appreciate it. Thank you. And thanks for the questions, Robert. Thank you, Elma. I'll hang on if there are any more questions. I'll be on for a couple more minutes. Thank you, Monica. Stay safe and be well. Thank you. So one of the questions coming in is if there's some people still on, which there's some people still on, is to talk about virtual meetings. So if you like, happy to answer that. What are some of the best practices beyond the general advice to clarify your purpose, circulate an agenda, prepare people to be called on, and so forth? So yeah, there's no substitute for planning, I feel. And circulating that ahead of a meeting is important, particularly if it's complex and you expect people or need people to do their research and make sure they're all on the same page. Virtual meetings, I guess, like face-to-face meetings, are best when people are contributing and they all feel that they've got a voice. So whoever, in the case of a host or a team lead, it's really important to be able to ensure that, and even more so when you're working virtually and remotely, that all of the participants get a chance to be heard and have a chance to speak and contribute. So that's one of the challenging things when you are working remote. But it's a skill, and it comes with practice and being able to, for instance, see and acknowledge and notice, when people are raising questions, commenting, and getting familiar with the tools that you're using are going to make that a lot easier as well. Another question here, which is a very good one, is when joining a company as a new employee and going into a remote role, what ways would I be suggesting to get connected with the team members to build a good rapport? Interestingly enough, I've worked for international companies, and when I've been there and been there to get training or onboarding, that's obviously been the best time. So to make use of that and to meet as many people as possible. But if you don't have that chance, then to reach out to people and literally introduce yourself. So to get yourself set up on the applications that give a bit of a profile about yourself. And like what we do in X Team, we've actually got channels for introducing yourself, and that we're all subscribed to it. So we see when people are joining, we see when new programmers are coming on board, and we literally give feedback, we welcome people, and it's the starting point for being able to, help people feel welcome as they come on board. The other part is then, you've got this chance to, I guess, flatten the hierarchy. When you're all remote, it does tend to take out the hierarchy. And part of our culture is that everyone is accessible and everyone can help, no matter what the need, no matter what the scenario, no matter what the requirements. So I guess it's building a culture where people are approachable, and that the forums allow people, the appropriate creation of forums and journaling, in fact, allows people to help you if you are having challenges. So we've got a very transparent and open way in which developers journal at the beginning of a day with the intention of what they're looking to achieve, the tasks they're working on, and then at the end of the day, things they learned. So there's this sort of reflective aspect of not only them learning from the experience of the day, but perhaps their team or team leader can also then participate in, contributing to their productivity, the challenges that they might have faced, or even learn from the lessons that they've learned from. So there's this collaborative learning, which is a very powerful mechanism. And again, doing that in a tool like Slack is very simple to do, but a very powerful mechanism that we've learned in X Team over many years. So highly recommend that. Just seeing if there's any other questions. If you sense that despite your best efforts, an employee is struggling, not focused, lonely, what can you do? We actually, it's a very good question. Every time you submit invoices in X Team, it actually asks feedback about how you're doing on your project. Is there anything you'd like to talk about? Are there any challenges? So the feedback loop that I mentioned earlier during the webinar is really, really important. It's not only done at the team lead level, but it's also done just through the process of collecting people's invoices and timesheets. So that way, if there is any time to gather that information, you want as many feedback loops as you can. Not that it's taxing or that it takes long, but simply by clicking a smiley face and, happy, a neutral or a sad one can indicate, people aren't well, and it allows, people in our organization to step in and just ask if everything's all right, reach out and communicate, and simply with a message just to check in on people. So really good question. And really important. I sort of feel like in X Team that's always the case. There's always people checking in, and there's that sixth sense, because I'm giving feedback about how I'm going on the project, how I'm feeling, am I feeling productive, and getting things done at least on at a minimum on a fortnightly basis when I do my invoicing. So that gives you an idea how. Then in addition to that, I've got weekly meetings, we've got stand-ups, there's lots of opportunities to check in with people, and it's really important. And we do care about our people, we care about doing that, and that personal aspect, not just the business connection, is really important in the way we build our bonds and culture too. So with that, we're about to wrap up. I'll take one last question here, which is, what can employers do to make sure that people are staying focused, committed, and happy? I gave the example at X Team. It is trust for us. But what we do in addition to trusting them is to encourage our people to journal. And that way, on a daily basis, they're journaling what their intention is, the tasks that they're working on, and any blocks that they might face. So it does provide a feedback loop on a daily basis as well, that they're working through things. They may be hitting challenges, but also to see that they're working through them. And if they need help, that they'll reach out. There's forums to do that, but also, we're all looking out for each other. So sometimes we can notice that someone's learned something that we're interested in and reach out and start a conversation about that. So even in the virtual environment, it's really powerful to be journaling what it is you're doing, what you're learning, what sort of blocks you're facing, even independent of those virtual stand-up meetings. And that way everyone's learning and helping and supporting each other. And it really does feel like a very happy, committed, and focused team that's also going to support those times when you're not feeling motivated and not feeling happy about things, or dealing with some challenges on the project that you're on, or people that you're collaborating with. And so we're there to help each other out and help each other on that journey. I think in some ways even more so than in an office environment where you expect it, but you don't necessarily have that culture of looking out for each other in quite the same way when it's well designed as it is for us in X Team. And it works because it supports our own culture and we contribute towards it. So again, thank you all very much for being a part of this fabulous collaboration with Girls in Tech and X Team, and the topic being working remote, how to succeed with virtual teams. I hope there's been some really useful tips there, some ideas and concepts that are new to you, and I wish you well on your, your working remote careers. So all the best. Thanks again.